day, everyone. Today, we are going to chat about pre-construction. It's a hot topic. Everybody is asking about it, and there's so many cranes on the properties, and people saying what's happening. People need to have information about pre-construction, and I thought I asked Mr. Jeff Slightham, Vice President of LePage Signature Realty, and the person who's responsible for the relationships with majority of the builders in the city, to join us and share with us about his thoughts. And I really appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ed. It's a pleasure to be here. It is a hot topic these days, and the Greater Toronto Area, there's no better place to live, and hence all the demand for just real estate and new real estate, and hence why you see so many cranes across this great city of ours.
So my first question, Jeff, for you would be, who do you think, what type of buyers would be a good candidates for pre-construction, and what type of buyers should not be looking into it as keenly? That's
a great question. The purchasing of new construction, I think what attracts a lot of people to it is the deposit structure. General resale, you have to have that, in more cases often than not, that 20% down right off the hop. When you buy new construction, the deposit structure is spread out over the construction life of the project. So a project takes on average 4 to 4.5 years to build. That 20%, even 15% in some cases, is spread out over that 4-year period into incremental payments. So that attracts a lot of people, knowing that they don't have to write that big check right up front. They can divide that big check into little ones. And so that it's almost like a forced savings plan, and it allows more and more people to enter the real estate market and to invest in real estate, because a lot of people now have come to realize that investing in real estate is a great way to grow your net worth. And so everyone's like, gee, and seeing that as long as you own real estate for a long, long time, it's a fantastic investment. So those who have the mindset of owning real estate for a long time are really the ones that I think it eliminates a lot of risk in the investment,
right, if
you have that mindset. I think clients and buyers of new construction who are looking to buy and flip quickly, there's a term that you'll hear in industry called a sign it. It's where you sell a contract before you complete the sale in its entirety. So during that 4-year construction cycle, closer to the end of the 4-year period, you would sell the contract before you even have to close on it, in hopes to make a profit. It's usually not a large profit, small, relatively speaking, a smaller profit than you would if you were to hold the asset over a longer period of time. But there's much more risk in that, and you're much more susceptible to swings in the market, because if the market takes a dip, right, and you have to sell, obviously, and you cannot close on it, and there was that risk, well, then obviously you could be in a bit of trouble. But if you have that long-term mindset where you want to buy, it's a forced savings plan, you're going to spread out that deposit structure, then close on it and put a tenant in there and have them pay that mortgage, help you pay that mortgage for you, there's no better way to help grow your wealth.
Wow, that's the best way of looking, bringing this up, because I was always telling my clients, look, do not buy pre-construction if you're planning to assign it for a profit. If something happens and you wanted to sell in the period, I will be more than happy to help you doing that. And you might make some bucks.
Yes.
No worries. However, if you're thinking of doing real estate pre-construction specifically, think of it being able to close, to put a tenant in it, and that's what it exactly said. And thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.
It feels great to get some
Great
approval.
minds think alike.
Great to have some approval from the big guy.
Oh, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask if you could walk us through like a hypothetical or imaginary type of pre-construction, how we're gonna proceed.
In a lot of cases, and people don't quite realize, the demand for new product was as strong, or if not stronger, than the resale market. Wow. So when you have, say, a new building announced and launched, per se they call it, you'll have, upwards of 300 units released, say in a project of 400 units. The developers never released a building in its entirety. So those 300 units, they may have thousands of worksheets for it. There's thousands of applicants to try to purchase only 300 units. So you have multiple offers on all 300 units.
Right.
Now, there could be more, it could average more towards this. A lot of people like to buy the smaller more investor-driven units, the 1 bedrooms, the 1+ dens, where the larger units tend to open up more opportunity to purchase in a project. So when looking at new construction and buying a condominium, it's important to have more than one option per se. Again, similar to resale, where you go and tour, 4 or 5 homes, it's a good idea to go and tour, 2 to maybe up to 5 different projects to get an understanding. There's different incentives to encourage you to purchase at certain projects, and that'll help you obviously understand the project and to be aware of the fact that I understand that I am competing. And so I may not, although this is the project is my preference to be in, I may have to look over here as a secondary alternative. So again, it's good to have your options open when looking to invest in real estate, because there are a lot of great options out there.
Right.
And so that's step 1. Step 2, obviously, is to making sure you have, I'd say, at least 10% cash in your bank account on hand right away, because in the initial deposit structure, they do ask for 5% in that first 30 days in terms of the deposit structure. The further 5% is usually due within the first 6 months.
Right.
So within that first 6 months period, you're going to have 10% of the overall purchase price held on deposit with the developer and their legal team. Ready to use. So it's important to have that cash on hand. If you don't have that cash on hand, you're stretching yourself. Again, you may want to just be patient and wait a little bit till you have that cash ready to go. So once you've picked that building, you say, this is where I want to be. You'll pick your top 3 choices in the building. So again, keeping options open, understanding that the demand is strong, and be happy with any one of the 3 choices you have. And again, arguably some people want to be on a higher floor versus a lower floor. Lower floors tend to be a little less expensive than the higher floors. The prices increase anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 a floor, depending on the project. And so the higher you are up in the building, the more expensive your unit. And so it's important, again, to have those options in place. So the developer likes to see that you have 3 options. And should you be allocated a unit like one of the 3 that you've selected, and you move forward with it, the contract is then sent to you. The deposits have to be dropped off, and so forth.
Right.
And so and that begins the process. Of course, one other great point that we need to bring up as well is mortgage approvals. It's so important as you're going into this process is to have that mortgage approval in place. It does tend to be a little more complicated when buying new construction. To get, because it's tough for a bank to say, yeah, I'm going to pre-approve you for a project that's going to complete 3 to 5 years from now. And so how do they do that, right? So there is a method to the madness, and it can be done. It's just important that you start that process early, because a lot of times those commitment letters are due within the first 30 days from signing the initial contract with the developer.
Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about why is this in place? Why this pre-approval is recently being pushed or emphasized on, and basically, who does this, help? Like, what is this good for?
It's interesting. It's a great question. It's a team effort,
right,
to get this building off the ground, right? So the developer needs their purchasers to have these pre-approvals. It's one of the check boxes that needs to be blocked off in order for the developer to acquire their financing to build the building. So they're not building it just with their cash.
Correct.
They're going to a lender, a bank, to borrow the funds, or a couple different banks, to borrow their construction money, a construction loan, to build the project. And so those banks, the developers bank, they're vetting every single contract, and they are more thorough than ever before, where the banks, the builder's lender, are reviewing every sales contract to make sure every piece of documentation is perfect and that documentation is present. And of course, one of those documents is either a firm or pre-approval that is required by that purchaser.
Right. So what I'm seeing here is that this is going to be to the benefit of everyone, because if the project is being built and people are just buying on speculation and they cannot afford to close, that's not going to be
that's a problem.
Beautiful.
That's a problem.
Scenery,
exactly.
Right? So it is good for everyone. It might be a little bit of a pain to get that.
It's a bit of a dance, because you've got to go to your bank, and a lot of times they don't know what the developer's requirements. Every developer is a little different in terms of their financing requirements. So sometimes there is some back and forth between the buyer, their bank, the buyer again, and the developer, and of course the realtor, to help try to put all the pieces together when it comes to that mortgage fund. And again, it can feel stressful at the time, like, why are they so picky? But you just go through the process. The developer understands that it is sometimes difficult, so it could take a little more time to get the approvals in place. They understand that.
They extend that.
So as long as everybody's on the same page and we're working towards getting the right documentation together, I don't see it being a problem.
Where does this money, like the money that the people give to the developer, where does it go?
Great question. So it's very secure. Whenever you're buying in a multi-family, multi-unit building, the funds are kept in the developer's lawyer's trust account. So you're not writing the check to the lawyer, you're writing it you're not writing to the builder, you're writing it to the lawyer. And so the in trust, so the funds are secure. So if the project, for whatever reason, does not go forward, know that your funds are secure. There's no interest on those funds. You just, obviously, if the project doesn't go forward, the funds are returned in their entirety to you. No interest or deduction.
At least we know that the money that we put in is not gone.
Exactly.
It's not, okay. No interest on it.
No interest. Because
even if it's an interest.
If you wait a year and the developer is struggling, they haven't put a shovel in the ground to start construction, all of a sudden the project can't move forward, you want to know your money's safe.
Yeah.
Now, that rarely happens, but does it happen? Of course it does. There is that small chance.
Yeah.
But that relates
at least
to
we have the security that
100%.
We know that
and it's important to know, in talking to yourself, you're going to want to make sure that they're working with you, who's educated and knows that you're going to invest in the right project that's not going to run into an issue like that.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting, like all of these different areas of pre-construction that is kind of, I would say it's a little bit different than resale.
Yes.
Tell us about like our relationship, like the realtor's relationship with the builders, and how does that benefit the...
No, it's a great question. I think the developers over the years now they've come to realize the importance of the realtor sales team developer relationship. Right, so in a lot of cases, the sales representative will work with the developer sales team to put these transactions together. And so a lot of the marketing budgets now, I'd say all of them, most of these in terms of condominiums, and developers are selling in condominiums, a huge part of their market budget is the involvement of the realtor, is making sure the realtor is involved and the realtors are exposed. So they can then expose, as a realtor, we can expose the project to everyone we know and really talk it up and say, yeah, this is a great project. And inevitably it will, because those are the ones that we get behind. And so we want to make sure that they have access to as many great projects as they possibly can, because developers now will not work with the general public, especially with the initial release of these projects, because they are trying to eliminate the follow-up with the client and all that kind of great stuff to keep in touch with them. That is the realtor's role, and they understand the value of that. So they're leveraging our relationships with the clients in order to assist them in putting the transaction together. So they're giving all realtors now, not all realtors that have relationships with these developers, access to the initial release of units first.
Right.
And then if there are some remaining units, there are times where they will release units to the public where the public can walk in and purchase.
And tell us about the advantages of getting those
great question. Exactly. It's a great question. You're going to get the best pricing. A lot of times there are certain things like discounts on parking, or parking may even be included. Same with a locker. A locker may be included or at a discounted price. Assignment fees, again, will be lower. Development charges may be lower. All these fees and charges and things like that, especially when you get in early. And because of our relationships with these developers, it allows us really to be front of the line and to gain access to these great, wonderful projects, that you get all the benefits and discounts and the best pricing right from the start. Because as the project goes down the road, they see the market appreciating. They're inevitably going to rate costs not only on the units, but on parking. They may not need to have discounts on the development charges anymore because of the demand of the project. But they want to hit the market with a splash, and they want to sell a lot of units right away, and so they leverage the agent community and have those incentives in place.
Right. Can you tell us about why do they want to do this? Like the first set of the things to go, like to reach a level that's like, they are giving all of these incentives. They have a good.
Well, good. They have a goal. They want a project. They want the project to be successful. Mm-hmm. Every developer is a little different in the way they manage the project. Some have a larger sales cycle than others. Others have a short sales cycle because they want to lock in all their charges, their bank fees. They want to get the approvals in place. All these kind of little things ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. So they need a certain percentage sold in order for certain things to happen. So like in terms of getting their financing in place, they need 80% of in a lot of cases, they need 80% of the building sold. So they want to hit that target quickly so they can, obviously the sooner they get construction started, because the developers don't get paid until the very end, until every unit is closed. So they're obviously, they're properly driven to get to the finish line, right? They're properly motivated to get to the finish line, right? So, because it's only costing them until they get there.
I heard a while ago that there are the developers are being allowed to put a clause in the contract that they can increase the purchase price. Can you touch on that? And
they've always been allowed to have it. It's a great question, but with costs going up, development costs, in order for the project to be successful, they've had to put in a contingency plan to say, look, if costs go up exponentially, they wanted the right, in a lot of cases, to increase the purchase price to up to a maximum of a certain percentage. In most cases, on average, we've seen about 3%. Mm-hmm. However, we've seen in some cases where there hasn't been that clause, and developers have gone back to their purchaser pool and say, I'm really sorry, but the project is no longer viable. If we want it to continue, you have to pay X amount more than what you paid 6 to 8 months ago. Right. And that's just because now they've gone to tender in terms of acquiring all their contracts for all their trades to build the contract, like their concrete trade, their window trade, their painters, all this. So you run into all of a sudden everything's gone up in price. Their drywall, we all have heard lumber, wood, everything's increased in price. And labor as well, of course. Yeah. So as they recognize this and they go to tender and all these things, you're like, wait a minute, we can't build it unless we are able to achieve. Now we thought our performers said X, well now we need Y. So a lot of cases they will go back, and if clients aren't willing to pay a little bit extra, that's fine. They get their deposit back. But of course the developer gets the right to resell that unit at the higher price. And
this allows it basically prevents the projects to get canceled.
That's the idea. They're trying to and I think obviously it's a scary thing. Well, what do you mean I could just arbitrarily just have to pay 3% more? Yes, that is, maybe it is a negative. Of course it is. But on the positive side, the developer's putting it out there. They want to continue down this road with you. They want you to be aware of this. It doesn't mean they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. But if their costs dramatically change, they want you to be aware that we may have to do this.
Mm-hmm. Keep this in your calculations that it might be a challenge.
Exactly. And in some cases, unfortunately, if the project's taking too long to get off the ground and get things in line and get started, and it appreciates, sometimes, they may have to increase your price, but the property's appreciated more than what they're increasing. Yeah. So there's so many little factors you have to take into consideration.
And can you tell us about the location and when we are looking into pre-construction?
Yes.
What would you say? What would be your advice to people who are watching this? Like, what kind of locations are you looking? Are they they're good locations? What to avoid?
Every project, there's something different for someone, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be a location. Maybe they live nearby where the project is the site's being developed. I'm I want something close by that I can go. If I'm going to rent it out, I'm close by. Anything needs to be fixed, I can go and fix it, and so forth. But inevitably, what it comes down to is transportation. Mm-hmm. The City of Toronto, in the core of the City of Toronto, the city wants developers to build fewer parking spots. And parking is very expensive to build in the first place. So you're seeing parking like downtown To buy just a parking spot, it's over $100,000 now in downtown Toronto to purchase a parking spot in a new condominium building. So they're saying, well, we need to build few of them. So being close to public transit is playing a larger and larger role. It always has,
Right.
but a bigger role than ever before because of the sheer cost of parking and how the city says, you know, we don't want to be a traffic city. We want to be an open city. We want to have ease of getting around. We want to be a public transit oriented city. Mm-hmm. So there's with that leaning so far that way, well, they want fewer people to have cars in the city. So a way to do that is to eliminate parking spots in these, right? If you think it sounds funny, but it's simple, right? Like how do we eliminate cars? Well, let's have fewer parking spots in condominium buildings.
Right.
So that's one of the pieces of the puzzle. So being close to transportation, I think in our great city in the GTA is becoming more and more important, whether it's a public bus, subway, the LRT, there's going to be the Ontario Relief Line now that's coming. All these great things. It's so important to really dive into a project when you're considering it to say, okay, how close am I to public transit? And I think that's the utmost importance.
Like how can people go and, you know, research the builders, like find out like who to go with, which builders are more reputable, which are not? Like, do you have any advice to that?
That's great. They've got to call you.
Yeah?
Yeah, they got to call Ed. Ed, you're the guy.
Okay.
Because I know, you know, in our past discussions that we've had off camera, of course, but you know, we've always talked about developers and who are the good ones, and especially nowadays it's even more important with costs increasing. You align yourself maybe with a smaller builder, maybe you tie up, you know, your deposit for a year, and all of a sudden the project doesn't go forward. Well, now you've got to start again, and prices may have appreciated, and so all of a sudden now you're paying more for the same unit, but with a more reputable builder where we could have got you into a project that would have been right from the beginning.
Right.
And so this is why it's so important to talk to someone like yourself who's very in tune with new construction and what we do as an organization to help you, you know, gain access to all these great developments.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff.
Of course.
Yeah. One of the things that is important, I wanted to emphasize on was the urgency of taking action. If we have chosen a project, like you and I know that, you know, sometimes they just release the floor plans yesterday or today or tomorrow, and they want they want you to buy today
and sold right? Sold within a few minutes. Can you tell us a
little bit about that? Like how you mentioned that it's good to have 10% down payment in your account ready to go, because regardless of the developers, usually like in the first 6 months you need that 10%.
Yes.
What is next? What is the importance of like being on your toes and, you know, ready for
great question. Inevitably, I think, and I'm seeing this more and more now with our organization and the great people within it, where you know, there's only so many. You can only do so much with a 1-bedroom or 1+10 or even a 2-bedroom, right? So we're finding that if you're looking at a project and you say, I want a 2-bedroom, but I like this project. Okay, as long as you have an idea of where the price per square foot is going to land, you can get an idea of where the pricing is going to be. In most cases, the pricing for a project is not released until that launch date. So how can we prepare a client or an interested party to be ready for that launch date when they don't announce anything until the launch date? So it's important to understand, like most 1-bedroom, 1+10s are very similar. They're going to be in that 450 to up to maybe just over 600 square foot range. How can we price it? Do you want something a little larger? And so in a project, inevitably there's going to be a few of those floor plans in that unit. So you know a 1+10 is going to be in the high 600,000s for this particular area of the city, on this floor, and with these amenities in the building and things like that. So you can get an idea in a ballpark just strictly based on what a 1-bedroom is going to look like. And then once the project launches, you can narrow it down. You're ready to go, and you can narrow the decision down that much faster because you were prepared, because you say, okay, this is what a 1-bedroom is going to look like. So and it's going to land in and around this price range. Right. Great. And so when they launch, we can get that worksheet in there for you. And when we see the floor plan, like that's the floor plan, you're ready to go, you can make that quick decision. It's all about preparation, right? Leading into these launches.
Exactly. Now, let's say we went and gave the worksheet, and then they allocated the unit that we wanted. and the same day we go and buy a lottery ticket because we had been very lucky to get that unit allocated. So what is next? Like, where do we?
Great question. A lot of developers now, what as purchasers need to be comfortable with is it's a little different than the resale. Where resale, you sign the contract and then the deposit check is delivered. In a lot of cases, the developer won't send the contract unless the check is delivered, because they want to know that you're serious, because there is the 10-day due diligence period where a client can change their mind. It's a bylaw. When you're buying new construction, you have those 10 days to take the initial contract to your lawyer for them to review. And if you're not interested, you can walk away and they will give you your check back. The developer in most cases won't even put it in their bank account or into their lawyer's bank account. So they want the client to show their interest, show their strength, and drop that check off first. And it's like, geez, I'm dropping a check off. I haven't signed anything yet. I just does something doesn't. It just takes a bit. It does take a bit of getting used to. But it's the name on the check is a major legal entity, right? It's a large law firm in the city in most cases, and so you know that your funds are secure. And again, the developer won't even deposit the check or give it to their lawyer to put it in their trust account until that 10-day period is up and the deal is firm.
Okay, so that 10-day period, you mentioned that it's something to protect the public, and
it's not to be used to get out. It is. I mean, it's not to be used to. You don't go buy a unit and walk away. You use it to say, if you find something in that contract that your lawyer reviews that you are not in agreement with, or something within that 10-day period, something in your life has drastically changed, then get out of the unit. Get out of the purchase. We understand that. But if you want to be mentally and financially prepared to make that purchase and not leverage. I got cold feet. I'm out of here. Right. You want to get over that cold feet before you write the check and sign the agreement.
The deal is firm. Like the 10-day cooling period is gone. It's over. There's no need to do anything as long as the 10-day is gone and you have not opposed anything. Your deal is firm.
It goes firm. That's correct. And they're requiring, within that 10 days as well, they want the balance of the post-dated check. So in terms of all those checks that will have to be deposited over the next 4 years, they want those written out in their possession within the 10-day cooling period.
Okay, and then from that point, what is the responsibility of the buyer? Like, they have to do
the next step is obviously getting the mortgage approval,
right,
and making sure the deposits, the cash is in the bank to make those deposit payments.
Those dates that they have.
That's correct.
Given them. And then what do they do? What's next?
Great question. So over the years of construction, you'll be notified of the process. They will, through the developer will contact your client directly, usually through the mail, let them know the process. You'll eventually be invited in to pick your colors, your color selection for kitchens, bathroom, tile, paint, all that kind of goes, floor, whatever package that you so choose. And then once that's done, usually, there are upgrades and things like that you can do. And in most cases, you'll be charged right then and there for it. They'll want to check, or in some cases, they can put it on your credit card, where you'll pay for those upgrades. And then once, obviously, as you get closer and closer to the final closing date, it's funny, after 4 years, you're like, all of a sudden you're invited back in, you pick your colors, and then it's finished. And so you'll go in and make sure all the closing arrangements are looked after with your lawyer. There's the occupancy time where you're given the keys, you still don't own it. And then there's the unit transfer date, which is when you do own it. So the occupancy period is where the developer is still finishing the building. They cannot register the building until the project is a certain percentage occupied. And in most cases, it's between 70 and 80% occupied by people who've purchased or tenants.
So one thing I just wanted to insert here for my own clients, if you have been dealing with me before, you know that I always offer to go with you to the selection of the colors, finishes,
that's really
and everything.
Right?
So it's really important for you to be with your realtor, get their advice, because you want to make
sure it's saleable, right?
Exactly.
You're not building, it depends. It depends. And either way, so make sure it's saleable. Even if you're planning on moving into it as well. My mindset has always been, when I've bought and sold my real estate, is even as a principal resident or investment, I'm not thinking I'm living here. I'm thinking, what is everybody else like? I know I like one look, but what look and feel that will generate the most amount of interest, whether I'm renting it or selling it.
Yeah.
And that's really the mindset. Now, if you're moving into it and you want to make it your own, you know you're going to be there for a little while, that's different, of course.
Yeah, I still can give you my opinion.
Exactly. I like it.
Like to do.
The hot pink backsplash.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, perfect. So you were talking about so we get let's just talk about the interim occupancy.
Yes.
I think we get to that point.
Yeah.
Right?
So you have your interim occupancy, and this is where it's a little complicated, where there is a formula the builder has that, so you are actually, people call it rent to the developer. It's not totally rent, right? So the developer still has interest payments to make on their mortgage loans, and they have to manage the building as well while people are living there. So they are incurring costs. So there is a formula for the people that when they do take occupancy, you're covering a lot of those maintenance costs of living in the building and a portion of the developer's interest on their borrowed money.
Right. And the taxes.
That's correct. And taxes, they're covering everything, right? So the developer's covering all that and you're living there. So you can't live there for free.
Right.
Right. So it's the amount is equivalent usually to about a mortgage payment, as if you'd put 20 to 25% down. So a mortgage payment on 75 to 80% of the value of the property.
Yeah, it's a fair price, and then hopefully they will close sooner, and then
exactly, you want it to close soon, and so they cannot close until the building is 80% occupied.
Right.
So no, if you've bought on the lower floor, they've got to close out all the higher floors before they can actually close your unit in terms of that unit transfer date. So you're going to be occupying for longer than somebody who purchased on a higher floor.
And the builder doesn't get his money from the lawyer until they close, correct?
Until the final closing. Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. Okay, so Jeff, and then we touched a little bit on the levies, and then
development
charges, and like closing costs for the people.
Yes.
Can you address that as well?
Yes, I mean, a great question. So development charges are something that the city charges to the developer, and they pass a portion of those charges, not all of them. And I know a lot of clients, I think, will think that all the charges just get passed on to them, and that's not the case. The developer takes on a lot of those charges. However, they do pass some of those costs on to the client, and they will cap those charges. When you're reviewing contract, it's important to make sure that it is a hard cap, a firm cap. It's not some flexibility cap where if the city raises their development charges, they have the right to raise theirs. You have to make sure, it's always good to go back to them and make sure the developer and their legal team to make sure that it is a firm, hard cap. And
last thing, maybe not the last one, but something that came to my mind was HST.
Yes.
Can you address that as well?
No problem. So in your purchase of a new condominium, the HST is always included in.
Right.
However, so you can claim a portion of it back. You cannot claim all of it back, but a portion of it back, and it's a bit of a formula to it. So you can only claim up to a maximum of $24,000. But if the property appreciates, and so let's say you bought it, and in 4 years it's appreciated in value, there's a formula. Again, this formula where if it's appreciated, what's it worth today? Well, it's appreciated X. Well, you're going to get less HST back. Which I found very interesting. That was it's an interesting formula. So, but again, you can apply to it. You have to either move into it or you have to have a minimum 1 year contract with a tenant from the occupancy date. You cannot, from the possession date.
Okay, so let me understand this.
Yes.
The HST is payable on closing.
Yes, it's included in the price.
So it's included in the price.
But you fill out a government form to claim a portion of it back.
Okay, and then
up to $24,000 max.
And that $24,000, regardless of you occupying it, or you have a contract with a tenant for 1 year, you will get it back.
You will get it back. So you need a 1 year lease agreement in place, or you've moved into it. But if you sell within that first year, let's say whether you have a 1 year tenant in there, or you've moved into it and then sell, you lose that opportunity to claim that HST back.
Okay. We talked about the closing.
Yes.
The closing is like
the unit transfer date they call it.
So they give them a notice
That's correct.
Before the closing, because what they need to do is just to prepare their mortgage
and their lawyer and all that great stuff. So you want to make sure then that you're prepared for closing, and the lawyer will give you notices throughout the construction process to say, yes, we're on time, or no, we're not on time. And so if it goes too long, you actually can hand the unit back. Most cases, people ride the wave because for the past 20 years, real estate's only been going this way, right? But things are changing, as we know, are shifting a little bit. But it's so important to be engaged in that process, to understand as you get closer to that closing date.
Get ready for it.
To get ready for it, exactly.
And one question I had was about this new interest rate environment that has been going up since, was it March, and then April, and then June?
Yeah.
So what do you think that is going to do to the pre-construction?
That's great. I think that's a great question, and nobody really knows. I think it's the uncertainty of when do rates stop increasing, right? So because you're closing in 4 years, or if you're borrowing now to put the down payment for your purchase, that's increasing. So it's understanding, I guess, the risk. So as long as you invest or purchase in a great piece of real estate and take advice from this guy, right? I think you're right, and say, and where can I safely put my money into investment? And as long as you don't have to sell, because you only really lose if you have to sell.
Right.
As long as you're in it for the long game, as we say, when it comes to investing in real estate, and come to investing in anything really. As long as it's a good, smart investment, you will achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve, even in a higher interest rate environment, where I think newer buyers entering the market are going to be like, yeah, this is the interest rate.
Yeah.
It was a little lower before, but this is what I'm used to now. So what's stopping me from buying? So you think about buyers like that, and yes, I think where clients will struggle is if they've bought, say, over the last couple months in that low interest rate environment, and now we're looking to invest again in a higher interest rate environment. That's where we're going to see, well, wait a minute, like I only had to pay X over here, and now I have to pay Y for the same thing. That doesn't make sense. So that's where there could be some discrepancy. A pause. But the new buyers that are into the market, they don't know any different.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to say, yeah, I know it's a little lower back then, but this is the new norm.
Reality.
This is reality now. So I need a house.
Yeah.
And this is it. We need more rooms in this great city of ours. So this is hence why real estate has become so popular.
Thank you, Jeff. And you promised to give us at least a few, opportunities in these new projects that are in town right now. We talked about theory of everything. We just wanted to give some options to people to see what is available.
What's available. So a couple things that are fantastic, some great developments, in my opinion, that are in the pipeline. There's one right in our backyard here at Eglinton and Don Mills Road, Crosstown. It is a fantastic site. It'll be the end, at least for a little while, of the Ontario Relief line, that the rail line that's coming up. It'll end at the Science Centre, right at that corner. I tell you, nothing better than that. And then you have the LRT line, which is going to cross it right there as well. So anytime you have two major lines, rail lines crossing meeting each other, it's kind of like the Young and Bloor effect, right? Or the Young and Eglinton effect. Or it's just one thing after another right now. Or the Young and Shepherd effect, right? So where just you see this density and value and the neighborhood just totally transform into this huge, I don't want to say mecca. Mecca is not the right word, but this huge, great organism of retail and activity and shops, and that's coming up very soon. There's going to be some townhomes and condominiums coming in the next, 6 to 8 weeks. There's another great project. Big fan of the resurgence of our downtown after the pandemic. Everybody coming back to the city. Yeah. There's a great project there called Celeste, which is right downtown. There's another one too, just up the street, to Tridell's next project as well, right at Queen and Church. A fabulous developer, fabulous project. Again, well situated, right downtown. Right, and that's coming very, very soon. And then the last one I can mention to you, the Southport Project, which is coming this week. So which is very exciting. Again, kind of Bloor West Village area, close to the water, close to, really close to that nature, close to Hyde Park, and then very close, just down the street from Bloor. So you can hop on the subway and get across the city in no time. So a lot of great things. I mean, it's like, gosh, how do we who's going to live in these things? There's so much demand because people need a roof over their head these days. So
yeah, absolutely.
There's some great projects and more coming in our pipeline.
Jeff, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your time and looking forward to have more of these.
Definitely.
Together.
It's exciting.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Ed. Pleasure. Thanks, everyone.